All right, today we are cracking open one of the most famous and, let's be honest, infamous political playbooks ever written, Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. This thing is a masterclass in the cold, hard mechanics of power. And it all boils down to one timeless, ruthless question. How do you get power? And more importantly, how do you hold on to it? See, Machiavelli isn't really concerned with what's right or wrong. He's all about what works. So today, we're diving straight into his core answers by looking at the different paths a new ruler can take to get to the top. Okay, so before we jump in, there are two big ideas you've got to get. Machiavelli says that every ruler's fate is this constant dance between virtù, that's your own skill, your talent, your sheer ability, and fortuna, which is just blind luck, chance, the hand you're dealt. The whole game of power is about how you play these two forces against each other. So let's kick things off with the first path, which Machiavelli sees as the toughest, but also, the most respectable, grabbing power through your own sheer ability, your virtù.
And Machiavelli doesn't mince words here. He says states won through your own skill are incredibly hard to get. The climb is just brutal, it's full of danger. But, and this is the whole point, once you've got it, it's way easier to hold on to. Why? Because you built the foundations yourself, brick by painful brick.
And he brings up some heavy hitters as examples. I mean, think about it. Moses, Cyrus, Romulus. Machiavelli argues these guys owed almost nothing to luck, except for getting the opportunity in the first place. Fortuna might have given them the clay, but it was their virtù, their incredible skill, that shaped it into a nation. Now, there's a huge catch. When you're a revolutionary, you're trying to build something totally new. You can't just rely on good speeches. People are fickle. Their beliefs change. So the most crucial point is this. You have to have the muscle to back up your ideas. When people stop believing, you have to be able, as he puts it, to force them to believe. Okay, so what about the other side of the coin? Let's look at path number 2. This is for the rulers who don't have to claw their way up the mountain. Instead, they just get to ride the wave of fortuna all the way to the top.
And this is the complete opposite of the first path. These rulers, they just fly into power with almost no trouble at all. Maybe their dad was a big shot, or they just caught a lucky break. But holding on to that power? Oh, it's a massive struggle, because their foundations are basically built on sand. They depend on the very same luck that got them there, and we all know how quickly luck can run out.
Machiavelli's poster child for this is the brilliant and totally ruthless Cesare Borgia. This guy was a rising star in his day, and he got his state pretty much handed to him, all thanks to the power and influence of his father, Pope Alexander VI. And this timeline, it really shows Borgia's frantic attempt to build his own foundations after he'd already been given power. You can see his ruthless virtue kicking in. He tricks and kills his enemies. He executes his own cruel henchmen just to win over the public. He did everything right by Machiavelli's standards, but in the end, it wasn't enough. And that's the whole lesson right there. Machiavelli actually really admired Borgia's methods. He thought he was a great model for new rulers. But he had to conclude that Borgia ultimately failed because of, and this is key, an extraordinary and vicious stroke of bad luck. His fortuna turned on him, and since his state wasn't built on his own skill from the get-go, the whole thing just crumbled.
All right, now we get to the path that really gives Machiavelli his reputation. The one that basically ripped politics away from traditional morality for good, taking power through pure, unadulterated wickedness. For this, Machiavelli goes way back in time to ancient Sicily and tells the story of a man named Agathocles. This was a guy from the absolute bottom of society, the son of a potter who climbed the military ranks and one day decided, you know what, I'm going to be king. And he was willing to do anything to make it happen.
And his method was just shockingly simple. It wasn't some long, drawn-out war. It was a single, brutal event. He gets all the city's most powerful people in one room, gives a signal, and his soldiers wipe out all potential rivals in one clean sweep. And just like that, he owned the city, no questions asked. This brings us to a really shocking but absolutely critical Machiavellian idea. He argues there's a difference between using cruelty well and using it badly. Now, this isn't about good versus evil, it's about what's effective. This chart says it all, really. Cruelty used well is like surgery. It's quick, decisive, and it's done. It's one terrible act to secure power, and then it's over and you can start to earn back the people's trust. But cruelty used badly? That's like a slow poison. Little acts of cruelty that just keep happening, creating constant fear and instability. And you can't rule a state like that. So, what's the takeaway from all this?
If we lay out all these paths, a pretty clear formula for getting and keeping power starts to take shape. Let's put the whole playbook together.
So here it is, the formula laid bare. And you can see there's a direct trade-off. Relying on your own virtù is the hardest way to get power, no question, but it gives you the most security. Riding on fortuna is the easiest ride to the top, but your throne is going to be incredibly shaky. And the path of crime? Well, that's the ultimate wild card. A huge gamble that could pay off big, or it could destroy you completely.
Of course, Machiavelli mentions a couple of other routes. You've got the civil principality, where you're basically elected by your fellow citizens. And then there are religious states, like the papacy, which he kind of amusingly just says are run by God, so they're beyond any kind of rational analysis.
Ultimately, The Prince isn't just a history lesson. It's a mirror. It forces us to look at the uncomfortable realities of power and ask some really tough questions that are just as relevant now as they were 500 years ago. So the final thought I want to leave you with is this. Is that line between leadership and cruelty, between skill and sheer luck, still as razor-thin as Machiavelli described? He gave us the playbook. What we see in it today, well, that's up to us.